I replaced the battery, but it's sometimes when the battery starts getting low, it kind of craps out. So let me know if you can't hear me well. So the second webinar that I wanted to put on for you guys, some of this stuff you guys may know, but essentially I wanted to show you how to, first of all, where to get Fire Family Plus 5.0, which is the new version that they released last year that Mr. Jolly put on his site. And I'll show you the link to where to download that if you guys don't have that downloaded yet. And then also the main crux of this one, and again, I'm going to try and keep it under an hour. And if you guys miss something or get confused, I'm going to convert all of this to a PDF like I did last time and send it out to everybody so you can go over it at your leisure. And if you have any questions, you can always give me a buzz too. But essentially, it's downloading Fire Family Plus 5, and then also how to obtain and import in the weather and fire occurrence data. And then the very last couple of slides are where, if you don't have these already, where you can request an ArcGIS online account through the NFDrs site, and then also where to obtain access to the FireNet, to a FireNet account, which is where, at least at the national workshops, that's where we stored a lot of the documents that we were working on. So those two things. So essentially, for you guys, if you're going to attend one of the workshops, which we will put on next year, the Nfdrs 16 workshops, these things will be, so you can get your databases ready prior to the workshop. So it's kind of like a pre-work webinar. Because again, I think I mentioned this on the last webinar, if attendees or you guys or whoever is going to attend the workshops, if we have this stuff set up prior to the workshops, it'll save us some time on that first day, because that first day in NAFRI last year, a lot of it, we were messing around doing a lot of this stuff, and if we can get this stuff set up ahead of time, that will make the workshops run more smoothly. So, as far as the latest version of Fire Family Plus, that's the URL. And I think Matt at the Fire Lab, Mr. Jolly, said the latest version will always be at this link, I believe. So if you can, one thing I found is it does not work, when you click on that link in Internet Explorer, it just gives you a bunch of characters in the web page. And I think it works better if you within Chrome, you right-click on this link, and then it gives you the option to download the file. And another thing that I had trouble doing is downloading this onto my Park Service computer. I have a Park Service and a Forest Service. I'm not sure about the state folks, but I put a request into the IT division in the Park Service to see if we could get this as an approved software. But right now I just have this set up on my Forest Service computer, and you have to select like the Run Elevated in order to download this file. So it's a little, I noticed I've heard from other folks that have had problems getting this set up. Like Mr. Maurer, do you have this on your computer, the 5.0?
I don't yet, but I can load it because I have elevated rights for my computer at the office.
Okay.
It varies from state to state, and I know working with people around the country, everybody's IT sections are different. Some can load it themselves, others need the IT to do it, so it's going to be case by case.
Right. And sometimes you need to have the IT person, get remote into your computer, or if you have one in your office, sometimes you need admin approval to download it. But I'm trying to get it approved. I put in a request to at least the Midwest region to get it approved. So that's, and again, it seems to work better in Google Chrome. Like Internet Explorer, it didn't seem to work as well for me. So that's where you can find it. And one thing BJ noticed in Minnesota, he noticed that they've added in the Canadian indices to the latest version that was released in September into the new version of Fire Family Plus. So that new version includes, like it says here, all the 5 new 2016 fuel models.
Hey, Steve, this is
Yep.
John Ashcraft. Have y'all heard when is it supposed to go, like, right now it's considered a beta version. When are they supposed to be done with it?
Honestly, John, I think Matt is he's still tweaking that thing. Like, I think that workshop in October at NAFRE, there's like Faith Ann, she also is a national on the cadre and does a lot with Fire Family Plus. I still think they're tweaking it. Like, I noticed on the WFAS site, the WFAS, they still don't have it listed. Like, when you go to the Fire Family Plus link, it's still the 4.1 listed there. So I'm not, when I find that out, I'll let you guys know. But
Yeah, because Fish and Wildlife is like Park Service. We got to have them remote in to do some of that stuff, and depending on how the update comes down when they're done with it, I may have to get in touch with our IT folks again to get it fixed after they finish it.
Right. Yeah, I'll be honest, like getting the 5.0 on your computer, it's been a pain. Like I don't know. Once they make it it'll be helpful to gain approval, like I mentioned, once it's an official non-beta version. So I'll send out a link when Mr. Jolly passes that on to all of us. But for now, I hope, if you need some help getting it on your computer, I can give it a shot. Or, it's basically going to be your state or agency IT people that can try and get that file, that MSI file onto your computer so you can, basically get it downloaded onto your laptop. So the next step that I do, when I download it, I did it in my documents computer, or you can just put it right on the C drive, but you can create a Fire Family Plus, like it says up top, a folder. And then within that folder, I create those 3 files that I've highlighted right here. So the fire currents, station catalogs, and weather data. And some of you guys are familiar with these procedures, but for those of you who aren't, this is just how to set up to create these folders to make it easy to download the files. So that's what I do. That's my naming convention that I use. You guys can use whatever you want, but the 3 ones that you want within that Fire Family Plus 5 folder are listed here. And then to create a new database, and essentially Fire Family Plus is just an Microsoft Access interface or manipulator. So you go up to, once you open up Fire Family Plus, you click on File, then New, and most of you guys are familiar with this. And then what I just called it Eastern Area, but you guys, your home unit or state, you can just put that as a file name, and that's what creates that .mdv file, the Microsoft database. So you just type in a name within that Fire Family Plus 5 folder after you navigate there, and then hit save, and that will create. I just call it, and I'm going to have to create a bunch of new ones, I think, because of the database sizes now with the hourly data files, the weather files. As far as the first thing you do is, as far as obtaining the data that we want to import, the first thing you do is to obtain the station catalog files for the RAWs within your area. So to do that, there's the link is at the top. Most of you probably have this bookmarked, the FAM website, and then you navigate to that fire weather data link. You can also get this through KC Fast, and then you click on state data, and then then you click on the state that you're interested in the drop-down. And then the catalogs are all listed there for the RAWs within each state. So then you basically, on the link under catalog, you right-click and then save target as for the raws which you wish to get the catalogs. And then basically you save that. It'll navigate to that station catalog file under the Fire Family Plus folder, and then save it within that station catalog in that folder. So as far as and one thing I can show you guys, and this is one thing I think I'll put in the PowerPoint. I think it's the only thing I forgot, is to import in the station catalogs. So I created a Big Rivers database, a new one in my new version of Fire Family Plus. So to import data, you go to Data and then Import, and then you go to the WIM station catalog, and then you'll notice, then you navigate to the station catalog folder, and then you can actually select multiple catalogs by holding down the Control key and then just clicking on multiple ones and then hit Open, and then that'll import the station catalogs. And if there's any errors, it'll tell you that. Like a lot of times I noticed it will have, like, for the green up and freeze dates, it'll be like 1/1, it'll be January 1st and December 31st. And then you can go in there and correct those if there's any errors. And you can do that by going into actually for the new fuel models, you won't have to do that. So that's a good thing. And I'll stick that slide in here for our reference point, in the future after the station catalog. But the next step is getting the FW13 or the fire weather data files. And again, this is a review from the last webinar. It needs to be hourly data now with the new version of Nfdrs. And you only needed, as you guys know, you only needed that observed 1300 ob in the previous versions. And it needs the solar radiation data and the snow flag data. And you can get the FW13 files from these sites. And people always ask how many years of data. I think, BJ recommended at least, and this is what I've heard from other folks, at least 10. But I mean, if you have data, I think the solar radiation sensors their installation began in the late 90s, but I think in the eastern area it's mainly been in the mid 2000s onward that they really came on board, so to speak.
Hey Steve, this is Rick Volek.
Yep.
Yeah, when we're out at that conference there in Tucson, we asked about a number of years because of the data file limitation issue. And
right.
Basically they were saying, like, if you can get 5 years of data, that's pretty consistent and not too many, holes in it, that'll be probably good enough.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep, thanks, Rick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Rick's right. With that hourly data requirement, the days of, like, going all the way back, like a lot of the RAWs in the Houston area, most of them that have been around a while have data all the way back into, like, the mid-90s. But Rick's right. I think because of the size of the database, you may only want to go back, like, 5 years, maybe 10, I mean, at the most. And the main thing you need to think about is the consistency and the quality of all the data. That's, like, it's listed here as that bullet on the third one down. And then again, this is, like it says, prior to the fire season, it's good to have 30 to 45 days of data, in the database prior to the fire season to set up the 1,000-hour fuel moisture levels. So these are all the links where you can get the weather data files. And this, I pulled this from one of the other the tech tips that was on the national Nfdrs 16 site. So, like Rick said, 5 years is probably ideal. You could go up to 10. And this is this importing, I guess, the steps that you should take are obtaining the FW13 files from KC-FAST or WIMS first, and then getting the hourly data through the CIFA or the WFIS site that is housed there, and then importing the files in this order. So essentially, you're getting from KC-FAST. It's not always the hourly data, and out of WIMS is not always going to be available. So then the next step is to go to the CIFA site, which has the raw R files on that site, and then supplementing the 1300 OBS with the CIFA file. So the first one, KC-FAST, that link will take you to the menu, and then you click on weather, data extract, and then historical. Type in the RAWs, the WIMS ID, and then the start and the end dates. There's drop-downs now, like the little calendar method, to select the start and stop times of and then you can try and obtain the hourly data from the KC-FAST menu. I noticed that they have the buttons there that you can select either or, and then you hit Run It Now. So here's all the selections that you click on, just to spell it out for you. And I just typed in, that's Indiana Dunes, the Bailey Station up in northwestern Indiana. So once you click on the Run Extract button down below there, then it'll give you the spinning, extracting, and then OK. And then down below, you'll see the save, and the little drop-down, you select Save As. And then you save that FW13 file that comes out of there that's extracted into your weather data folder that you created. The other alternate, like getting the data through the WFIS site, and this is the link, and I'll send all these links out to you guys as well, and they're also, like this site here is the one Matt Jolly put together. So this one is where you obtain, one place where you can obtain the hourly weather data. So essentially you drill down, you click on the circles. It's kind of I don't really like the display mechanism, but you click on like an area, and then it kind of drills down, and then the individual RAWs will show up as these little pins, I guess you'd call them. And then you right-click. It'll give you this pop-up, like with the White Mountain RAWs here, and then you right-click on that link and hit Save Target, and then you see, again, similar to the KC-FAST site, you save it to that weather data folder, the FW13, the hourly file. So that's one method of getting that hourly weather data. So any questions so far? Okay, and then as far as importing the weather data into Fire Family Plus, up at the top you click on the data, then import, and then select this on the import folder. You select the FW9, FW13. It's a little hard to see. I think I have another slide that shows this a little better. And then you can select multiple FW13 files by holding down the control button, then selecting multiple ones, and then you hit open, like it says. So one thing I wanted to point out is to import the the KC Fast or the WIMS, the data you can get out of WIMS, like the first step I showed you first, and then that CIFA, like from Matt Jolly's site with the drill down map, then importing the hourly data to fill in the gaps around the 1300 obs. So you do the 1300 obs first and then the hourly data second. And as far as like searching for errors with it, of the weather data, the best way to do that is like you can run like a dry bulb temp, and if there's any major problems, you can run precip, RH to see any problematic weather data. So you can go on, you can search, weather and then view observations. You can also look at them as well. Maybe I'll stick a slide in right here to show you guys how to run, for those of you that don't know how to do it yet, how to run a report that shows this. And this just shows you with this step here, you can do sort ascending or descending of like the RH or the temp. So if you've got a temp way up there, like, an error of like 135 or something like that, it'll show up if you sort descending within that. It's essentially like you're manipulating within Microsoft Access. So these steps you're checking for errors within the weather data. And this just shows you can actually export the file out of Fire Family Plus into a comment delineated file, and then use that, go into Microsoft Excel, and also do your data check there as well. One thing, I've always wondered this, how great of a data gap is acceptable in Fire Family Plus. And, like it says, like Rick just mentioned, you don't want that many days, but a few days are okay as far as, but if you get a gap where the data is missing for like more than a week, the problem is that then the fuel moisture calculations get messed up. So that's one thing that, like it says, that longer gaps are problematic. So one thing, I've helped people do in the past is like, as far as entering in those data gaps into the database, you can like pull up nearby state. I mean, it's pretty labor intensive, but you can like either in WIMS you can enter actual ops. I don't know how we'll do this with hourly weather data, but I think this with the hourly data requirement, that whole thing becomes pretty intensive. So I'll have to ask those guys what the solution is for these longer data gaps. So again, these are slides like a little more. This is kind of just going over what we did, and I just created these. Those other PowerPoint slides were from the National Tech Tip, but I created these myself, just to show you guys a little more clearly how to get those weather FW13 files into Fire Family Plus. All right, so the next, any questions on the weather data? I mean, I'm going over this fairly quickly, and again, I'll convert this into a PDF so you guys can reference this in the future. Any questions so far?
Steve, this is Chris. I did a bunch of data corrections when I was editing data in the past, and I know that there's a place you can send them in to Utah or to WIMS to get them updated, or you can go in line by line. But there were so many in ours.
I know.
That I basically have this huge spreadsheet of errors and what I thought the correction should be, and I would generally just take a reading from a nearby station and stick it in there. But is there, it sounds like there's going to be some advice on what to do with all these errors, or
Yeah.
get them fed back into.
I think that, yeah, I mean, in the past, before this hourly data requirement, I think it was fairly easy for me to help people go. I use like Weather Underground. You can like you said, you can go by a nearby station and type in, fill in the gaps a little bit. But that CIFA site out in Reno, the Desert Research Institute. They have interns out there that have helped folks in the past fill in the data gaps, and they're like the storing house for all of the hourly, the raw data from most of the raws. So I think if you guys run into issues where you have larger data gaps, it's possible, like Scott's talking about, you may be able to send them a request to see if they could piece together a more complete data set for your raws. Do you think is that what you're talking? Yeah, Utah.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that was still. I didn't know if that was still something we could do or what the process was. Yeah, I just looked 565 errors that were, I think, just ones that were no observation or obviously things that are questionable. Not to say that everyone was changed, but for the state of Illinois. But that did include stations in Missouri, Kentucky, and Indiana as well.
Okay.
And Iowa even, I think.
Yeah, I think, DRI or the CIFA folks, I'm pretty sure they're still willing to help people fill in data gaps. And if that raw hourly data is not on their site, like from that site that Matt put together with the drill down little pins, if it's not there, I think it's basically missing. So I don't know if they would help us fill in the gaps, or you'd have to go to that Weather Underground site where it lists out the hourly obs for nearby weather stations, be it like ASA, like the Weather Service stations. That would be to me, that would be a pretty large undertaking to fill in those gaps. So the hourly data requirement is going to be interesting for some people. If you don't, if your station goes down for 2 weeks, or it's just, that part of it's going to make it tricky sometimes. So I don't know if that helps you guys. I'm just stating like everything that I'm trying to think about as far as getting a complete data set in here for analysis. So any other questions on the weather data?
Steve, this is Steve in Jersey. So we're importing two different weather files, the daily readings and then the hourly readings. Is the, I guess, version 5 going to know to import both of them when it does the analysis? Or because you would think that the hourly would include the daily reading.
You would. I think the reason that you pull it out of KC Fast, or you can do it out of WIMS too, like an export file. I think, I'm not positive on the reason. You're right. Like you think that you think the 1300 ob would be in that hourly data as well.
Mm.
So I'm not exactly, that the whole ordering of the, I'm not positive the reasoning on, importing that KC Fast data first prior to the hourly CIFA data, that DRI data.
Right.
Because of the it's probably because of the Nfdrs calculations that are going on in WIMS is why you got to do that one first, because if you do the other one, it won't have those Nfdrs calculations. It'll just say it's a duplicate file and skip over it.
Oh.
Yeah, that's probably true. They didn't mention why you had to do that at the workshop, but I'm just passing on what they told me. But I think that's probably the reasoning right there.
Okay. All right, thanks.
So any other questions or comments on the weather data? I'll try to get an answer for, I think that the NFDRS calculations is the reason, but maybe I'll send Mr. Jolly a note, or Faith Ann, to clarify that a little bit. So the fire currents data, you go to that same link where I had you guys download the station catalog files, and you click on state data, and then on the drop down you select your state, and then down below, below the station catalog and the weather data listing is the fire occurrence files. And from this FAM website, it's all the DOI agencies if you have any in your area. So to download like the Fish and Wildlife file or Forest Service or BI, and then if there's Park Service, those will be listed as well. You right-click on the link again, save target, and then save it in that fire occurrence data folder that I want you guys to create within the Fire Family Plus folder. So you save as, and then the PCHA data, or the raw files are the Forest Service files. So that's how you get it out of the FAM website. And then this is one method where you can download any state fire currents data. And there's also, and I didn't want to get too long-winded on this webinar, there's also a database that Karen Short out west put together, and that's essentially, I think, that's through 2015 for all the state data. She went through and tried to collect everything that's out there and put it into one database. And there's another housing site that you can download a zip file and also get this. But this is one that's a little more straightforward if it's available. So you essentially go back to the FamWeb main menu, and the link again is at the top here. And you choose FamWeb Data Warehouse, and then click on the Public Access Reports. And that'll take you to a Cognos site that looks like this. So then you click on Fire Data Extract, and then click on NASF State Data Extract down below there. And then you can choose, I chose Maine and New Hampshire. You can, again, you hold control, like just similar like when you're importing those FW13 or the catalog files. You can choose multiple states, and you can also choose multiple years. And I just did this on the thing just to show you guys you can select multiple years. And so, I mean, ideally, I think you want to go back as far as you think there's consistent fire reporting for your home unit or your state. And then click OK. So all this is within the Cognos site after you get out of that initial FamWeb navigation. And then to get the data out of this report, one thing that confused me when I did this, when I was running these reports, is you'll notice for Maine, like the state of Maine has some fire reports, and also New Hampshire. You'll see it like the fire discovery date is listed over there on the left on this window. And this is one thing I need to get some clarification on for you guys. It's listed there on column B, but when I pulled this out into an Excel data format, there's pound signs listed for all the discovery dates. So that I don't know why it's doing that. So I'll have to figure out if it's something where I have to, if it's, somehow I'm clicking the wrong thing or something, but I'll show you that in a minute. So it looks, everything here, it doesn't always have the fire discovery time, I noticed. Like you'll see it's only the top 3 are listed there, and the rest of them are blank, at least on this screenshot that I captured. So you click on HTML, that little drop down in the upper right, and then view in Excel options, and then view Excel 2007 data. So and then it asks you, do you want to save that file, the Excel file, and then once it's downloaded, if it's a robust file, it takes a while to for this open folder window to pop up. Like it'll run a report, kind of like you can pull reports out of ROS, similar to that. I guess this is the Cognos stuff. But then you click on open folder, and it'll take you to the downloads. Normally it'll put it in the downloads folder on your laptop, and then you double click on that NASF state data extract. And here's what pops up. So this is what I was talking about. When I did this for, New Hampshire and Maine, just as a test, it doesn't, for some reason, the fire discovery date has pound signs listed there, so it's missing. I don't know. I'll have to mess around with that a little bit.
Steve, is
Can you
it
guys
missing, or is it just the column's not wide enough?
Yeah.
I think your column's not wide enough.
Okay.
Just stretch it out, and it should fill in.
Let's check that out here.
Okay.
Let's see. I'll be very excited. Let's see.
Wow, something new on a Monday. Wow.
Yes.
What are we going to do for the rest of the week now?
All right. Okay, there you go. Boom. So that one, okay. So, forget what I just said.
Sorry.
Sorry, you guys.
Discovery time, I know on some of the private and state fires, not informed Nfdrs, I guess, doesn't always require it, because there was a lot of them where they just didn't have a discovery time listed.
Right.
And I wonder if maybe that's where the gaps come in.
I think, yeah, and I don't think, like in 209s, like you put it in there, but a lot of times you just don't know, correct?
Yeah, but you have to put something in the report, so
yeah,
you have a reasonable guess.
Okay.
But I don't think you do on all the non-federal systems anyway. I could be wrong. But.
Yeah, I think in Nfdrs you should still have at least a reporting time for 911 center.
Right, but I think for, our analysis purposes, it's basically the data is the most important thing, correct? As far as the analysis,
Yeah, there's 6 required fields. Yeah, maybe time doesn't matter.
So yeah, again, so this is, if it's essentially, you just have to expand out the columns to show the data. So I'll fix that. Sorry, guys.
No worries.
So this is, so that file pops up in Excel once you click on this link within your Windows Explorer, where it downloads that file. So one thing, getting the state data in there is many of you guys know this. It's a little more intensive as far as setting up creating a CSV file to import into Fire Family Plus. And this is something that I think 4.1, beginning then, that Larry Bradshaw, he's retired now at the Fire Lab, but he's the one that created this option to get some of our state data in there. But the one thing that you need to do is you've got to highlight that discovery date column, the B column, and then put it in the correct format for Fire Family Plus. So you basically right-click on that B column, then select Format Cells like it shows here, and then you have to, and the steps to put it in the correct format are listed here. So you hit number, then custom, choose the correct month, date, and year format, and then hit OK. And then another thing, if it has for the containment date, you also have to do that for column E to get that in the correct format. Any questions with that? So once you correct those, the discovery date and then the containment date, then you can go up into a file and save as within Excel, and then you can save it as a CSV or common delineated file for importation into Fire Family Plus. And one thing it mentioned in the tech tip that I was viewing to put this PowerPoint together is that sometimes it gives you this pop-up, do you want to, some features, blah, 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 you can just click on yes. Just one little additional thing that may pop up when you save that. So I would save this just as an addition. I would save this within that Fire Family Plus folder that you created, just to keep things in order, so to speak. You could save it into the fire occurrence data. So then to import fire occurrence data into 5.0, it's just like it used to be from 4.1 onward, the last version of Fire Family Plus. You click on the agency, and if you have state data, you can select that NASF from the drop-down, and then it'll create a button, the NASF CSV, right next to the underneath here. You click on that to import that CSV file. That if you created one of those, if you select US, the Forest Service, it'll be looking for .raw files that you can get from that FAM website under the state data that I showed you guys, and then it'll say with me for DOI agencies. So and there, I think it's looking for those PCHA files. So all the, they don't make it easy for us. You guys have, if for any of you that have messed around with Fire Family Plus, it's not, getting the fire occurrence data in there is tricky sometimes, to say the least. But at least they've made it an option now for us to grab any available state data and get it in there. And it's been that way, probably for, I think Larry added this probably 6 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago. Maybe it's longer. You guys can correct me, but that hasn't always been. It's really been tricky trying to. I don't think the first 10 years I've been in this job, it's been really hard to get state data in there.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Is there?
So,
do you know if the new data does conversions over to the same cause codes? Because I remember that being a problem as well.
That's the main. I remember that is what people were talking about, and I'm not positive on that. Like the cause, you're right. That's the problem. Is like the agencies or the states have different cause numeric codes, correct?
Well, if they're all sending it to the same NASF site, I believe everybody's using the same codes.
But it hasn't been that way for that long, correct?
I don't know. As long as I know we've been doing it, we've been using the same codes. Now, whether other people have used different ones and have switched, I can't say.
Yeah,
Okay.
I built a crosswalk to kind of look at the codes our state was using versus the federal, the DOI and the Forest Service ones. But they basically had a lot more cause codes than we did, and some of them it's kind of hard to say which bin it should go into.
Oh.
But that was data up until 2013, I think, maybe 2012. So I don't know what it's been like since then.
Yeah, I mean, it's since I've been in this position, that part of it, like making sure this fire occurrence data is consistent across the agencies and the states, has been like the trickiest part. But I think, in my mind, if maybe you can, I don't know. I think pulling in multiple agency, Forest Service and DOI files into the system, at least getting it in there is the first step, and then you can try and figure out things from there by going into Fire Family Plus, and you can view the fires within there and see what they look like. And I think, the next steps as far as the analysis and then looking at the fire data, that's more of what we'll be getting into at the actual workshops. I mean, maybe I'll put together like a pre-workshop webinar like this one to kind of show the potential attendees how to at least get in there and start looking at the stuff to make sure things look hunky-dory prior to showing up at the workshop. But the purpose of this webinar was mainly how to, create the database, where to find the data, and at least trying to get it imported in. And I get it. The PowerPoint gets into a little bit into looking for errors, and I'll add a slide in here as far as running the climate report, looking at for the graph like a dry bulb or RH and so forth to see if there's any major discrepancies. I think that's one slide I forgot to put in there as far as the error check. So, and I think after this slide, after the this one, I'll put a link in a screenshot of the link to that site where Karen Short's those zip files are located, and how to import that in as well to see what shows up as far as any fire occurrence data that may be located there as well. That's like in 2015, all the predictive services met in Portland to do a data, like a regression analysis workshop as far as looking at kind of what we're going to be doing at the workshops. And a lot of people out west especially, I don't know how robust the Karen Short's database is for the east. I know some data is in there, but they use that database to get the fire occurrence data. So
there is quite a bit in there. The risk assessment we're doing here for Southern Illinois, that team's person that's doing that used her data. She had way more than we did even 3 years ago when we last looked at it.
Yeah, I mean, she essentially, that was like one of her, it was a project she worked on for many years, trying to obtain everything that was out there and put it into, and data check it as well as she could, and the folks working with her, trying to have a one-stop shop kind of. So that's another alternate place that we could import fire occurrence data, and I'll stick that the link and the slide in here as well before I convert this to a PDF for you guys.
Okay, but it's one thing I know is there are duplicate fires in there, so
yep.
There's a state report and one for us as well. Pretty frequently, don't always have
yeah.
dates or names or anything.
I remember them talking about that in Portland. People spent one afternoon going through there and trying to clean things up. So we'll have to see what that looks like for us in the east. So any questions? I mean, I know the fire occurrence, getting that data and getting it set up in Fire Family Plus is a little tricky, but do you guys have any questions on this, I guess, initial, instruction on it? I know all this stuff in Fire Family Plus, I mean, I've been using it for, since I got this job, but it's one of those programs, and you guys know they have been using it. The more you go in there and mess around with it, the more it's not easier, but it just becomes like for instance, when you're trying to do the fire analysis, there's certain buttons that I kind of forget where you have to click on to show like the bar graphs as far as like when you run an ERC chart and you're looking at the percentiles and those bar graphs that show like the cause and so forth. So and we'll have to either I'll have to do another webinar on that, or that's what we'll be looking at the workshops when we look at the analysis, looking at the new 16 fuel models and comparing them to older ones, or like in NAFRI, BJ from Minnesota, we compared like ERC to like the Canadian buildup indices and how that lined up with the fire occurrence data and so forth.
So, Steve, what are your expectations for folks that are going to be attending these workshops here with regards to what you just presented?
Well, the main idea of this webinar is to try and or attempt to have people come into the workshop with at least their database somewhat compiled.
Okay, so you don't want it cleaned up or anything like that. I would assume you would prefer to have everybody try to clean it and go through it, so we don't have to, spend a whole lot of time trying to do that during a week's workshop here.
Yeah, and that's kind of, as far as those slides is a little. Ideally, people would go in there like that, the error checking on the weather data. Where you run either an Excel input, export it into Excel so you can do a sending and look and make sure there's not any major errors. Ideally, they would have it fairly cleaned up.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be, a good ending point, if nothing else, is to not just have it downloaded, but take a look at your data and try to get rid of some of the erroneous stuff so that it's at least more workable or at least more representable to the business out there.
Right. The crux of all of these webinars is for people, and I may have to put this on this specific webinar with maybe a few more error checking slides. I may have to do this like in January again once people all get back from use or lose or the holiday break, especially for any new folks that are going to attend the workshops, because the main purpose of these is that we're not spending like that first day getting everyone's databases set up for their home units.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea, another webinar that takes it just the next step from this one here to where, all right, so let's assume you got your data. If you can go ahead and try and get some of this stuff cleaned up, here's how. And
Okay.
That might be a good way to do it. And that, along with GIS information, I think that would be most helpful for folks, especially when they start to try to delineate out, the FP, what they call fire danger analysis areas.
Right.
Response areas, whatever they want to call them. Christ.
Fire danger, yeah, FDRAs. That's what. So that's. I'll probably, before I can send this out to you guys, I'll add in, like I said, that Karen Short's link, and then also, I think I missed a slide how to get the station catalogs in there.
Okay.
So the crux of this one, again, is just to get your database going. And then you're right, Rick, maybe the next one I do in January is maybe run through this stuff real quickly again, and then also show a little bit more on how to error check the files. So before I end here, the last two, and this is something like when Rick came on board, these are some of the links I sent him. So we at the NAFRI workshops last year, we used ArcGIS to do analysis on trying to figure out what our FDRAs were going to be in that central New England test, area. So we use our AGOL, the AGOL is the acronym for it, to look at topography, fuel type, any political boundaries within an area of concern, and try and make those fire danger rating areas. And then once we did that, we just picked. This is what we'll be doing at the workshops, is pick one or two FDRAs to do the fire analysis on, to try and figure out what indices line up best with the fire occurrence data. So to get, this is the link at the top, is where that'll take you to this page, and then to request a new account, you click on that highlighted link down below there, and it takes you to this page, and this is what Rick filled out. And if you need a, I'm not sure, Rick, did you need me to sponsor you for this or not? Just the FireNet account? Do you remember, Rick? Well, anyway, I think so that you fill out this form to gain access to AGOL. And then another thing for that you'll need to have for the workshop is a FireNet account for those of you that don't have one yet. A lot of federal folks already have one. But this is the link at the top takes you to this page, and then if you have a PIV card, you select the left one. And any state folks, essentially, I can act as your sponsor, and then I send a request to the admin, the FireNet admin folks, and then they approve you via my sponsor.
That's the way it worked for me, Steve. That's exactly what happened. It was just straightforward, no issues.
Yeah, I don't think it, when Rick came on board, it didn't take very long to get access to these two sites, which will need a lot of the documents, like with that NAFRI workshop back in May, they posted a lot of the tech tips and so forth on the FireNet site. And I don't think to obtain the tech tips, you don't need an account, but if you want to place, let's say you're putting a draft FDOP for your home unit at one of our workshops next year, the national folks like to see those, so to upload say you have a shape file or something for ArcGIS, that's where you need an account. So these, and again, all these, I think when I convert this PowerPoint to a PDF, I'll probably, attach that and also just include in the email out to everybody, for sure, these two links to get the AGOL and the FireNet account sign-up links. I think that's it. What time? We got 2:01. So I tried to keep it under an hour for you guys. Any questions overall with what I presented before we end here? I appreciate you guys attending. I know a lot of people probably couldn't hop on because they're probably on use or lose, or the day after Thanksgiving. But like I said, I'll send this out as a PDF, and then probably show in the third webinar, like Rick was suggesting, the data cleanup webinar, maybe just include a few slides of this one just to kind of review at least importing the data in there and so forth. And I appreciate you guys' comments. Helps out just to have some input from what you guys are seeing out in the field as far as getting this data in there and so forth.
The only thing that kind of concerns me is the size of the database. they say 300 megabytes is about the limit, and that kind of could be an issue when you start setting up your areas. You may not have enough data space, if you will, for all the data that you're putting into it or need to have in there. But I don't know. I just haven't got that far yet to really speak on it. But I think all I was trying to do is just highlight that the more data you can get in there, the better. But just recognize that 5 years would, might be a threshold at that 300 megabyte, plus all of your fire occurrence stuff that you have.
Yeah, I think you're right, Rick. I think that's what BJ meant. He's the one that told me, like I mentioned in the last webinar, that 300 meg is like the ideal max size for it to run smoothly. Like when you run the climate reports.
Yeah.
And then so that may be, if you have hourly data in there, that 5-year threshold, that may be what it's referring to. Which to me is like,
that's what it is.
Yeah, it's a little unfortunate because, if you have good data back 10 years, it's better the more data you have to analyze, the better. But
yeah, but they did bring that out, that 10 years will crash your program.
I do think Faith Ann mentioned, Rick, you were there in person. I think she mentioned that they're trying to come up with some workarounds as far as that database size. And I hope that, whether that be, a new actual mechanism, like instead of using access, I think they're trying to come up with a way to, if you have too much data in there, to have it run more smoothly compared to what's the current that 300 meg limit is.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly